Hi, and welcome to the first episode of Criminal and Crimson. In this episode, we're going to cover a not so unique case in that it's quite popular, but unique as in it's a very strange case and it's still unsolved to this day. This takes part in the deep, dark forests of England during World War II, which is one of the things that makes this a bit more unique, perhaps, and more interesting. It's a case that's haunted historians and conspiracy theorists alike for 80 odd years. It begs the question, and you'll see why, of who put Bella in the Wych Elm. It's a case that covers the possibility of spying as well as witchcraft, and there's just so many theories with this. And our story begins in 1943 in Hagley Woods, Worcestershire, in England. The war, of course, was still raging at the time, World War II. And four boys were out, well, we don't know for sure, playing in the woods. They claim they're looking, because of rationing, they're looking for a bird nest to find eggs, which I guess makes sense. But their hunting for eggs would lead to one of the biggest mysteries in Britain that is still unsolved to today. They stumbled across a tree, a wych elm, and they only knew that it was hollow inside because a bird had flown in and out, and that's why they say they checked it out, because of course they were looking for bird's nest. When they examined it a little closer, they actually found this white object. When they examined it closer, they found that it was actually a skull. They, for some reason, decided they weren't going to tell anyone. They're just going to go home and forget about it. Luckily for us, one of the boys couldn't do that. So the next day he told someone, I believe it is his father, and the police went to the tree and they found skeletal remains, not just the skull. They found the rest of the body, or most of it. They found items of clothing and shoes as well. And it was a woman estimated to be between 25 and 40. They think that she was probably around 35 though. Another thing they found actually on her was a wedding ring. The wedding ring was described as a mock wedding ring. Now, some people say that leads us to believe that she's very poor, maybe even a gypsy, something like that. Well, not necessarily. Maybe she just wore a cheap fake wedding ring just to deter men from hitting on her all the time or whatever, you know. So the fact that she had a mock wedding ring on, we can't exactly say that means she 100% was poor. In fact, I would say from the look of the clothing she is wearing, the clothing, it depends upon the quality, which I don't know. There's no way to find that out, I don't think. I don't think any reports specify the exact quality of the clothing. But depending upon the clothing, I would say, from the way it's described, probably not like, you know, super poor or what you would think of a traditional 1940s gypsy wearing or whatever, which is one of the theories. The police launched an immediate investigation, as you'd expect, and the problem they stumbled upon straight away was the fact that there was no missing reports, at least not matching her description. She had unique teeth. They weren't the greatest teeth, a bit higgledy-piggledy and stuff, and also she was quite short. She was estimated at a maximum of 5 feet tall, maybe less than 5 feet tall, so she was quite short. Later there would be a reconstruction years later of what she would look like. There is a picture that you can find on the net. The trouble is with trying to determine the cause of death when they did the autopsy was they didn't have much to go on. There was no tissue really. She had a little bit of hair still on the scalp. There's a bit of a scalp, a little bit of hair attached to the skull still, but they didn't have a lot to go on to try to determine the cause of death. They, in the end, ruled it a murder, probably largely because she was stuffed in a tray. You know, that's not the normal way to bury a person, is it? So they also decided that she had been suffocated or choked to death because in the skull there was still a piece of fabric in her mouth. Lodged in the skull and the mouth was a piece of fabric. So they thought perhaps she choked on that, you know, been forced down her throat, and she choked on that. They hoped her unique teeth would lead to identifying her, and hopefully pretty quickly, because they of course reached out to dentists, made sure the newspapers were aware of the description, hoping any dentist would see and say, that's my patient. That never happened. Then about a year later, something that really made this kind of blow up into something that would seem like it's from a Hollywood movie, which is probably partly why this case is remembered so much. All of a sudden, about a year later in 1944, mysterious graffiti started to appear. And that is where we get the name of this case, Who Put Bella in the Wych Elm. Various graffiti started to appear around the local villages, saying various things along the line of who put Bella in the Wych Elm, who put Bella down the Wych Elm, who put Lubella in the Wych Elm or down the Wych Elm, things along that line. That, of course, really made this extra mysterious and added to, like, you know, the newspapers' dramatic reports, things like that. Was her name even Bella? I don't think so. I think it's a case... there's a few possibilities for the graffiti, who put Bella in the Wych Elm. The person could merely be using a generic name, kind of like who put Jane Doe in the Wych Elm. The other possibility is a killer himself, and he was just sort of partly mocking the police and maybe trying to throw a red herring in it, you know, Bella, and then they look for Bella and there's no Bella, etc. The other possibility, of course, is this person had no idea about the case. They didn't know who she was. They just either doing it for a prank, or possibly they were doing it just to put pressure on the police to do more, to investigate more, especially when this is wartime Britain and wartime Britain. So they had limited resources, limited officers, etc. Although, of course, would have had the help of Scotland Yard still. The amount of officers available when a lot of people fighting is going to be limited, especially their top people, etc. Now, what are the theories? One theory, which I don't believe, so let's just get this one out of the way. Get this one out of the way to begin with. Witchcraft. The theory started about, I think, 10 years later. I think it was when somebody wrote a book, like they do, you know, and putting forward this possibility that it was a ritualistic killing, partly because she's found in a wych elm. It's called a wych elm, so that sparks, you know, that sort of idea right away. Then you've got the fact that one of her hands apparently were not with her; they were on the outside of the tree, and that has, I won't get into all the details, but it has something to do with like the hand of glory and witchcraft, blah blah blah. But I don't think so. I honestly don't think witchcraft had anything to do with this. And I'm going to cover a case next time, in the next episode, about Charles Wharton. He was a man who's actually killed about an hour drive away from here. And he also is thought to have been killed by witches or to do witchcraft, blah, blah, blah. And I can almost 100% guarantee you he wasn't. But stay tuned for that episode and we'll go into details about that as well. Interesting that I say it happened nearby to this case, and it happened only a couple of years later in 44, 45. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting case to cover too. So we have the next theory, which is that is a domestic abuse. It's just a case like many others. Maybe her husband beat her to death, whatever, disposed of her body. The theory is perhaps that she was a gypsy and then they moved on, and that's why there's no reports of who she was, you know, the missing person. I don't really feel that's the case. I don't really feel her clothing matched that, and I just don't really... It's possible, but yeah, I don't really buy that one either. The most intriguing theory, which most people would say was just a wild conspiracy theory, but I'm not so sure because you have to remember this is World War II Britain, is that she was a Nazi spy. This does have a bit of weight behind it. It's not just, oh, it's World War II, she's a Nazi spy. There is various things to point to this. Let me just check this here. It says 1953, so that is 10 years after she's found. It is believed, though, by the coroner and that she actually had been killed about 18 months prior, so you're looking at probably around October 1941. Late 1941, she probably is when she was actually murdered. So about 10 years after her body was found anyway, a woman named Una Mossop wrote to the Wolverhampton Express and Star claiming to know who Bella was. That she said she was involved in a spy ring. She alleged that Bella had been working as an informant gathering intelligence on Britain's munition factories, and that her death was a result of being discovered. The problem with that is, I think there probably is some truth to it, but if the government had found out she was a spy, I don't think they would have stuffed her in a tree. I think they probably would have cremated her body, maybe. Then it's gone, isn't it? It's disposed of, no evidence. It's all gone. Goodbye. The fact that she was stuffed in a tree doesn't really seem professional to me. So, more of my theory with that would be maybe she was like the girlfriend of a spy, and found out he was a spy, so he had to silence her. That would be one theory, and that would be why it wasn't done in a professional way. He panicked, found out that his identity was blown, killed her and disposed of her. The other explanation along those similar lines would be that she was a spy. She had maybe been dating one of our agents. He found out she was a Nazi spy, and he was like, well, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for this if they find out. They're going to think I'm a traitor. I've been giving her information. I've been deliberately doing this and that. So he may have panicked. I didn't want the government to find out. Killed her himself and disposed of her. That would also make sense with the spy sort of theory, as well as the fact that it wasn't a professional sort of job. Well, it doesn't seem like it. One spy she could be is there was a Nazi spy with a similar name. There was a Nazi spy called Clarabella. Well, it fits, doesn't it? Now, officially, it can't be her. The reason that is she was way too tall. She was 5'10", so she was quite a tall woman. Whereas it's estimated that our Bella was under 5 foot. The thing is, how accurate is any of that? For starters, spy documents can be lied about, forged. Also, we only have skeletal remains. How accurate was that autopsy, especially during wartime? Was she really only like 4'9" or something? Under 5 foot. It's very short. It's not impossible. Clarabella, apparently, according to official German records, also died in 1943 in a Berlin hospital. So many people say, okay, case closed, it can't be her. But she's a Nazi spy. Why would they be telling the truth about her dying? They may be, they may not be. Also, the thing to bear in mind is I find it quite interesting that this Nazi spy, who just happens to have the correct name, Clarabella, just happens to die in a hospital in Germany the same year that Who Put Bella in the Wych Elm Bella was found in a tree. So she coincidentally died the same year in a hospital. Very convenient, but I don't know what to think about that, but it's something to think about. The newspaper did receive that letter about a possible spy, and I'm going to read it to you. Regards the Wych Elm crime, by all means. They are interesting to your readers, but you'll never solve the mystery. The one who could have given the answer is now beyond the jurisdiction of earthly courts. The affair is now closed and involves no witches, black magic, or moonlight rituals. Well, I believe that. Much as I hate having to use a nom de plume, I think you would appreciate if you knew me. The only clues I can give you are that the person responsible for the crime died insane in 1942, and the victim was Dutch and arrived illegally in England around 1941. I have no wish to recall any more. Anna. Yes, quite well written, isn't it? It sounds like a novel beyond the jurisdiction of earthly courts. A bit dramatic, but yeah, that was Una Mossop. That's a letter she sent to the newspaper. 80 odd years have passed since this happened, or since she was found, and what's the logical thing to be thinking about this? Well, it could easily be solved now with DNA. You've probably thought of that already. Well, what I'm about to say may point even more to the fact that she is a spy and there's some sort of cover-up, because coincidentally her remains have disappeared. They were with the police. They apparently were on display as well in one of their training places, and they've gone missing. I find that very convenient. You know, there's this allegation that she is a murdered spy, then all of a sudden, in more modern times, when there was a possibility she could be, this could be solved of who she was because of DNA, now her body goes missing. I think that's very, very convenient. So that, to me, points more to the spy angle. Yeah, it could just be a coincidence. You know, things get lost. This is 80 years we're talking about, 80 odd years. And, yeah, crimes that go back so long are known for having things lost. They're known for evidence being lost. They're known for inquest reports being lost. By the way, that all applies to this case as well. Inquest reports are gone. Evidence is gone. And that is not unusual for an ancient case, because for a start they didn't really think they needed to preserve it because there wasn't DNA testing. They did what they needed with it, and that was that. They didn't really care. But to my knowledge, it is still very unusual for the actual remains, the body, to go walkies. Normally that would be dealt with, that would be cremated, that would be buried nicely in a, even if it's in a potter's grave, even if it's in, you know, one of those sort of graves. But in this case, we've got evidence gone, we've got the inquest report gone, we've got the actual remains gone. And that, to me, is unusual. The remains to have vanished. So, no DNA testing. The trouble now is, if the body did show up, I would have my doubts if it was even the original body, because now it's disappeared. That is suspicious. So if they reappeared, would they even be the same body? Or would they have been switched over, swapped out, whatever, you know? So this case is basically never going to be solved, at least not satisfactory, because, like I say, even if the body appeared, is it the same body? So yeah, it's an interesting case that actually in a way leads into my next story, because the next story I don't believe is connected to this one. I don't believe there's witchcraft any more than there was in this one. But interestingly, they happen not far away around the similar time this next case I will be covering, so look out for that. So make sure you subscribe to this channel to keep up with more of my videos like the next one. Why don't you put in the description what you think about this case. Do you think it's witchcraft? Do you think she's a spy? Do you think she was somebody like a gypsy or just another ordinary person who was a part of domestic abuse? The one thing I will add as well is, from what I can tell from what I've heard, somebody had to know about this tree. This tree was not easily discovered, at least not that, well, the tree kind of was, but not that it was hollow. It was very covered up. You couldn't easily see that it was hollow. The only reason the boys knew it was hollow was because they saw the bird flying in and out. So somebody had to know that this hollow tree existed. And from what I can see, from what I've read, you couldn't put her body directly in it. You had to go up and shove it down. That is not easy to do either. So somebody knew it was there. They got up and crammed her body, presumably not skeletal at that point, all the meat, all the fat, you know, everything on the bones, crammed it down this tree into this hollow. That isn't easy to do either, which leads me to suspect maybe there's an accomplice, somebody who helped, because that's going to be very difficult for one person to get up the tree with a body and cram it down. Yeah, so basically, to end this, what do you think? Put in the comments what your theory is, what you most likely think happened, and if you think the body will ever be rediscovered for DNA testing. So until next time,